It's really nice of all of you to join us. We've been looking forward to this to feature our friends Annie and Kessa at St. Louis Park in Minnetonka. They're the reliable ones to talk about the real experience in a metro city. So that's why we've been looking forward to hearing from them today. And we'll give you a nice, concise presentation, and then we have allotted enough time for questions at the end too. So glad you all could join us. As I said, the people today in the presentation are Annie Pottorff from St. Louis Park. Wave Annie. Kessa from Minnetonka. The famous Ryan Kruger from EnerChange, who is the manager with us, energy efficiency manager, and I'm the executive director. We like to start our presentations just to remind everyone that the reason we're working in the world of energy efficiency is ultimately for the purposes of planet wellness. We don't dwell on this, but we certainly are aware that the changes we can make positively in the consumption of energy really helps the environmental issues overall. And our mantra is whatever else you're considering to improve consumption of energy, and we know that probably everybody on this webinar is really interested in doing that. We say do efficiency first. And we'll touch on that as we go, because the cheapest, cleanest energy is the energy you don't use. It doesn't seem as interesting as solar and wind or geothermal maybe, but efficiency is the cornerstone of reducing our environmental impact. And Avery Lovins at the Rocky Mountain Institute coined the word negawatts, which means the energy you don't use, and that's the most efficient of all. However, we need to state clearly that we're not under any delusions. Whatever we may think about environmental issues as individuals or as organizations, unless efficiency efforts deliver financial benefits to the end user, nothing will likely happen. EnerChange has over 12 years of building impressive results. We've addressed the needs of over 1,500 nonprofit buildings. And interestingly, we've saved well over $28 million for those nonprofits to use in ways other than going out the door as expenses. So that's been a real, and for nonprofits especially, any dollar saved is appreciated. We've had continuous funding since 2010, supported by very generous partners, the Department of Commerce of Minnesota, Xcel Energy, and CenterPoint Energy. And just to set the stage, though EnerChange, and we'll be talking about nonprofits for sure, remind you that nonprofits come in all shapes and sizes. It's often thought of, and actually it's the reason EnerChange was originally funded, was nonprofits were kind of falling off the radar of the utilities. But I mean, we cover everything from community centers to museums. We're very active in the healthcare world, senior living, sports facilities, the whole gamut of size and nature. So Ryan is going to talk to you about exactly what happens when we engage a client and get the process started.
So my name is Ryan Kruger. I'm the energy efficiency manager for EnerChange. I do all the onboarding for all the clients that come through that eventually get an energy audit. I'll periodically do site visits and kind of address what the potential energy efficiency opportunities for your building are. But at the backbone of that, it's consistent services delivered every time. So this blueprint on the right is an on-site walkthrough, a prescription that is your report. Once we identified certain savings opportunities, there may be multiple Xcel or CenterPoint programs that apply to a specific project. There may be 3 different rebate structures for one type of lighting project. So you kind of get down into the weeds, but then at the same time, we're going through the payback, looking at the financing, looking at how much or like how much energy is being saved by that project. And then if you decide to move forward, we'll help you implement it. And then on the back end, we're reporting, tracking, and updating everything on the utility side. And so what we're technically providing is an ASHRAE level 1 audit. We're doing a utility bill analysis. So part of the onboarding process is getting bill copies for your electric and your gas, and then we'll request 36 months worth of billing history. So in a lot of cases, nonprofits that we're working with are paying taxes. So immediately, wow, we can take care of that. Go back 42 months, use that funding for projects or use that chunk of money to hopefully spur some action. And then we can do rate changes. But then really the big game is identifying projects that we can move in the right direction. Elevator pitch, we're a cost-free program. So within any of your municipalities, if Xcel or CenterPoint is one of their providers, then we're a cost-free program that can be deployed to do an energy audit for a nonprofit that it may be in an oddball sector where, like right now, we're tackling a lot of food shelves. There are a lot of untapped food shelves 45 minutes outside of the like center metro where they need a lot of help, and it's actually enjoyable to work and be able to tank down that energy consumption. So there's a handful of different typical sources of savings. Lighting has been the background for a long time. We're still helping a lot of clients convert from older lighting systems to LED, but as that market is saturated, we're pivoting towards other types of savings. So that's controls, Wi-Fi enabled thermostats on steam systems. There's a lot of maintenance that is deferred, and there's really good rebates for replacing steam traps that save. If you replace all the steam traps in an older steam system, you might save 20-30%. And then heat pumps are a big topic of conversation for some of the new construction that we're working on, as well as complete retrofits. And then variable frequency drives they should be on every air handler in every single commercial building that we're in. But the nature of the nonprofit sector, we're kind of playing catch up in certain areas where it's like, all right, this rebate covers 65% of this doohickey's cost. Let's get them installed. And then sample projects. And so some of these will be the city of St. Louis Park. Some of these are clients that we've like done our due diligence to work with. And there's something that I didn't have a slide on that I probably should have, was when communication from the municipality comes down and says, this is a cost-free program available to you, and energy efficiency is something that this city is providing as a service, it gets there's much more buy-in across the board. It's a lot easier to push from the city than it is to push from the utility, because a lot of people will say nothing's actually free. It's like, well, this is free and can help a lot. Sidebar. But okay, so sample project. So St. Rosa Lima, new air-cooled chillers, VFDs on the air handlers, new control system, their entire system will save that building on the heating and cooling side $3,000 to $4,000 a year. For Shiloh Missionary Baptist, they did a full LED upgrade in 2018. In 2020, they installed Wi-Fi enabled thermostats across the board. In 2021, they replaced all the rooftop units. And then through a power purchase agreement and one of the local Xcel contractors, They got $387,000 worth of free solar installed on their roof at zero out of pocket. Watching the numbers work on a project like that is why this job is very interesting and fun to do. For Progressive Baptist, they have been paying taxes on their utility bills since the moment they opened their church in 1976. Coincidentally, the refund for 42 months was $7,600, pivoted that money into doing an LED upgrade. At Watt Prom, they're doing a kitchen upgrade, they're doing an LED sanctuary lighting upgrade. There's rebates that'll cover 20 to 40% of the project from the city of St. Louis Park because they have a bonus match. They'll cover 50% of what the total rebate is. We just get to play that same game. And then, so that's kind of we work with a lot of churches. So it's a church, that was a church, and then a kitchen. This is an art studio. So this person bought a 5,000 square foot building in Northeast Minneapolis, gutted the entire thing. Originally, it was 4 individual units where he removed 4 individual units worth of mechanical equipment, lofted it. It's beautiful now. They have an Xcel smart meter. The building is 100% electric. They have electric hot water heaters that are linked to an in-floor radiant system. So that's going to provide heat for the entire space because you literally walk in the front door, 15-foot ceilings, but at 75 feet is where you see the next wall, and it's just concrete slab the whole way. And that project should be done in the next like 2 or 3 months. It'll be really cool to go in there. But then they did LED, they did have hemp insulation. They're going to do solar once everything's actually installed and done. But then I helped them through 2 different grant programs, one through the city of Minneapolis, one through CEE, and then they got a third grant from upstate New York. So they're very tied into the art world, and this will be a pretty cool focal point. And then partnership with St. Louis Park. So for Wayside Recovery, they have 2 different buildings. One, the supportive housing, got free 4-foot LED tubes through an Xcel Energy direct install. So they got basically 400 4-foot LED tubes installed at zero cost, funded through Xcel rebates. For Wayside Treatment Center, they got Wi-Fi enabled thermostats. They got a little bit of the free installed lighting through Xcel, but then we had them bid out through a local contractor what it would cost to convert everything to LED. Project cost $7,600. The Xcel Energy rebate was $4,600. St. Louis Park provided their rebate match of 50%, so another $2,300. So at the end of the day, a $7,600 project got all the way down to $700. And I would love to be able to do this everywhere. This makes the conversation significantly easier. It's relatively easy to understand. You just have to do the project in the right process flow for all of that to work.
Right. Thank you, Ryan. And Annie's going to talk a little more about Wayside in a minute too, but I want to stop for a second here and do a little housekeeping. I've appreciated the chat going back and forth about the video and audio for our guests. And Ryan, is that something we can control? We'll have the unmuted mics for the question and answer. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty dull. But do we control the video so we can see the pictures too? I'm not sure why that. And if anyone else in the audience knows how to do that, let us know.
Well, so this is the first time that I've done an event through Teams, so I don't know what settings I can actually change after I've created the event.
Okay. All right. Well, we're doing fine. Thank you all for your interest and participation. And as we mentioned, the 2 main presenters are Annie and Kessa. And without anything else, take it away, Annie.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. I'm Annie Pottorff, and I'm a sustainability specialist for the city of St. Louis Park. And quickly on the housekeeping note, I'm able to just click through and give participants access. If you go into the People tab, you can click on the 3 dots and say unmute mic. So that's one way to do it. So I can do that a little bit later in the presentation, so you can make sure ready for Q&A.
Thank you.
Cool. Just wanted to lay a little bit of the context here. So very similar to EnerChange, a lot of St. Louis Park sustainability programming is driven by our Climate Action Plan, which was adopted in February of 2018, and it is a goal to get to net zero carbon emissions by 2040, which is a big undertaking. And I like sharing this graph because it really shows how it'll take all these different sectors working together. And so this kind of wedge diagram shows where we started when the Climate Action Plan was released and all the different efforts that will be needed to get to our goal of net zero by 2040. And so you can see there's residential efficiency, electric grid mix, renewable energy, travel is going to be a huge one, waste strategies, and then some more advanced strategies will help us reach those goals. But commercial and industrial efficiency, that maroon area, is a huge piece. The building emissions that come from our large commercial and industrial buildings here in the city, and a lot of nonprofits are underneath that kind of chunk of the wedge diagram. And so it's very important that we work with our houses of worship and other nonprofits on increasing their energy efficiency to help us reach our Climate Action Plan goals. So that is really where our Climate Champions program was born. So this is the city's energy efficiency assistance, cost share, and recognition program. It doesn't just apply to nonprofit buildings. It's really supposed to be for use for every type of property owner in the city. But specifically, we'll be talking about our partnership with EnerChange today, because that is our kind of implementer, technical assistance partner that we have for the nonprofit side of things under Climate Champions. But generally for the program, owners of single-family homes, multifamily buildings, businesses, and organizations can receive a free or reduced cost energy assessment. Kind of varies depending on what building type you have, if it's a free or reduced cost assessment. And then they'll all get assistance with navigating upgrades, and then partial reimbursement from the city in the form of a rebate match, which I'll get into in the next couple slides, and recognition for their efforts. So we give them these stickers if they're a business or organization to hang up in their entryways. If they're a resident, they can put it up on their homes, and we try to promote them on social media too. So how it specifically works with our partnership with EnerChange is that the organization will receive, again, as you've heard, a completely free energy assessment from them. And then they will receive their report from EnerChange. And then with the help of EnerChange and city staff, we ask that they complete an application for pre-approval prior to project completion. So that's really trying to gather more information about whatever project they're thinking about. And so they'll ask about the project type. So is it LED lighting, or is it an HVAC project or insulation project? It'll ask about the cost of the project, the contractor they're working with, if they know at that point, and the potential rebate that they think they're going to get from Xcel or CenterPoint for the project. And this is really just for us to kind of lay out the whole map of what projects are going on across the city, so we can kind of pre-allocate that funding and keep track of our matching funds. And once they're pre-approved, they just need to complete the project. And then once they've completed whatever project, they will just send us a copy of their utility rebate. And then we will mail the cost share check to the recipient. So hopefully it's pretty easy, and EnerChange has been really great about helping them navigate that rebate process, you know, especially if they're a smaller organization that doesn't have a designated facilities manager or property manager that's familiar with that process. EnerChange also plays a key role in a lot of these steps. And then finally, we have our bonus, which is that our Climate Champions might be eligible then for additional solar reimbursement from the city if they take those energy efficiency steps first. So what's covered? This is a question I get from both organizations and nonprofits in the city, and as well as contractors, just like, is LED lighting covered? Is it HVAC? Whatever else they're looking at. It's really anything that qualifies for a rebate from CenterPoint or Xcel. The city will match that rebate. And I'll get into those matching amounts in the next slide too. But Really, anything, again, that'll qualify a rebate will match. There are some things that don't always qualify for a rebate. Like, for instance, Ryan mentioned that free tube lighting promotion that was going on from Xcel. So that's kind of a separate thing. But we can work with other additional Xcel programs that might not qualify to, again, get like the most savings we can for these projects. So in St. Louis Park, our cost share amounts are a 50% rebate match for any nonprofit in the city up to $3,500. Then there's also a 75% rebate match, and these are for nonprofits who qualify for our environmental justice rate. So we have identified 3 census tracts in the city using some different environmental justice and equity metrics. And these are things like areas of the city that have poor air quality, they have a higher percentage of BIPOC residents, lower household income, high population of people that are over 65 plus, and under the age of 5 years old. So those are areas of the city, neighborhoods that are more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And so the idea here is giving businesses and homes as well, we have this higher rate across our programs, but more of an incentive to make those upgrades to get at those environmental justice goals. You can, organizations who participate in the city's benchmarking program can also get the 75% rebate match up to $5,000. And they need to be either in compliance with our benchmarking ordinance, which we have at the City of St. Louis Park, or they can voluntarily choose to benchmark in perpetuity and send us proof that they have started benchmarking using Energy Star, and then they can also qualify for that higher match. And I wanted to note too that these matches are per project/rebate, not per building or on an annual basis. So I'll get into this a little bit later, but for instance, our food shelf in the city just did a bunch of projects as they were expanding. So they got, I believe, the up to $5,000 match that was available to match rebates for lighting and for HVAC and for refrigeration. So there's a lot of savings to be had. I wanted to share my outreach process with all of you so that hopefully you can literally copy this into your city. That's kind of the goal of this webinar, is please replicate and adapt. But I started with asking our assessment department for a list of all the tax exempt properties, and it ended up being 47 properties. And it was just kind of nice to have that roadmap where I could say, okay, this week I'll try to connect with 10, and next week I'll do the next 10. And I cross-reference this list with other city contact information and our community development, for instance, and our community outreach staff to see, okay, they might have this like info at whatever on their website, but do you have the property manager or the pastor's name or whoever might be like the best contact to get in touch with? And then I just, once I had that list, started cold calling and emailing. And if they were interested in getting a free assessment, that's when I looped in EnerChange and made sure to present that there were some different paths. Like they could just have a call with Ryan to begin with to know more about their services. They could dive in and schedule the full assessment. Or I think something that was helpful for a couple of our houses of worship was Ryan presented to the church board and their leadership. So they might not have been ready yet, even though it's, as we all know, it's very beneficial to get the free assessment. They might not have been ready to go down that path just yet, wanted to learn a little bit more about their services. So he did that presentation. And then I continue to follow up on leads. It's kind of keeping the long game in mind. So our rebate match is eligible for 3 years after they get the assessment, because especially, a house of worship or nonprofits in general, they are often operating on shoestring budgets. And they might have had the energy assessment, and Ryan might have said it's a great time to do LED lighting or HVAC, but the budget unfortunately just isn't there for that quarter or the rest of the year. But maybe next year is when they'll be able to allocate some budget towards that. So just making sure to email them and let them know that they're still eligible for this match. Do you have any questions? Here's a reminder that you have your report from EnerChange, and Ryan and I are both available to help you navigate any questions you might have. And then I also have monthly meetings with EnerChange where I kind of talk about if I have any leads, and Ryan fills me in if he's heard anything from contractors or like from the project manager at whatever organization about how the project is going. So here's a look at our results so far. We launched this program at the beginning of 2023. So 8 organizations have received free energy assessments. 3 of those have completed 5 energy projects, which has amounted to over $17,000 in annual savings, which equates to almost 57 tons of greenhouse gas emissions reduced annually. So we're pretty excited about those results so far.
Should be.
And so here's an example. I mentioned STEP. It was really exciting to work with them because STEP is, again, the city's food shelf. They have a really big presence in our community. A lot of people volunteer there. A lot of people donate food. So it was exciting to help them get these savings. So they expanded into the space next door, and that included some LED lighting, HVAC, and refrigeration upgrades. Initially, their total cost was about $20,000, but they qualified for almost $5,000 in utility rebates. Across all of our rebate match, we were able to send them a check for a little over $3,500, which brought their total project down to about $12,000. So that's a pretty big jump, especially for a nonprofit. Again, that still a nonprofit, they still have that tight budget. So that was really exciting to be able to work with them and publish that as a case study on our social media, things like that. And then final couple slides here, I just wanted to mention our solar bonus. Again, sharing this in the hopes that it might inspire you to think about something similar in your community. But we really want to recognize that, as Steve mentioned, energy efficiency is really where you've got to start. And then we're incentivizing solar after those energy efficiency steps are taken. So we created the solar bonus. If a nonprofit or a business or resident, this is a program that's across our Climate Champions program, but in this case, if a nonprofit did an energy project and it resulted in a 5% to 15% greenhouse gas reduction for the property, they would get a 10% reimbursement from the city for a rooftop solar installation. If they did a project that resulted in above 15% reduction, that's incredible, then they get a 15% reimbursement from the city. And again, that's just on rooftop solar, and it covers the cost of things like the labor and solar parts, not extra stuff necessarily, but we've had a couple folks interested in that so far. So this is what Ryan also helped me develop because this rolled out at the same time that our Climate Champions program for nonprofits did, which is this calculator to see which reimbursement level for solar they'd be eligible for. So this is STEP, the food shelf. I did block out their usage information here, but you can see I put in with the assistance of Ryan again, because he is able with the property's permission to ask the utilities for their annual usage. So we have their current energy usage and then the projected savings that they were going to get from the lighting project, the HVAC project, and the refrigeration project, and then saw what the projected annual use moving forward would be, and then saw what the decrease in emissions would be. And that's using EPA calculations and Xcel's grid emissions factors. And we found out that all these projects, because it was a really outdated space that they were updating, were going to result in a 17% decrease in their emissions. So we reimburse them on their solar rooftop expansion 15%, because again, they kind of proved they're committed to this. They've already done efficiency, so they qualified for the solar bonus.
Great. Annie, thank you so much. And we'll come back to you with the questions and answers, but it's a great program in St. Louis Park, and we're happy to work with them. I got a note from one Kessa Andrews one day from Minnetonka, and she's the one that initiated our relationship, had heard about EnerChange, and she'll talk about what has been going on in Minnetonka.
Yeah, so I'm Kessa. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm a GreenCorps member, so through EnerCorps, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency administers the program, and then I serve with the city of Minnetonka. similar to St. Louis Park, we also have some goals for the city. So we're trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 41% before the end of 2030. So we're working towards that goal, and building emissions is one of our highest categories as well, up there with transportation, similar to St. Louis Park. So one of my projects this year was to tackle building efficiency, and EnerChange is such a great program to help do that. And so my goal was to get more than 5 nonprofits to sign up for an energy assessment and complete that over the year. So working with EnerChange has been great. Initially, I met with Steve and Ryan, and they shared their approach to outreach, which was really helpful, kind of that elevator pitch and just more about the program so that I could really share fully what it entailed and kind of make that clear to residents or the organizations. And then Ryan and I also set up monthly meetings, and that really helped us stay on the same page in terms of outreach and like tracking kind of who we were talking to when and kind of what responses we had gotten. So our results so far, so before September when we connected, there had been 4 completed energy assessments with EnerChange in Minnetonka from 2013 to 2023. So then when we started in 2023 doing this work, we then until now, 6 organizations have completed an energy assessment. 5 of them are religious institutions and 1 nonprofit. Like Ryan said, a lot of religious institutions are really on board with this and go for it. And then we also have a few more which are in process. So one I wanted to highlight especially is St. David's Episcopal Church. So they got a $3,000 reimbursement because they were paying taxes as a tax-exempt organization. So that was huge for them. And then they were able to put that towards a lighting project. And Ryan has a lot of expertise in lighting, so he was able to consult on that project and really get them going to get LEDs. So that's really exciting for them. And we were able to publish an article in the Minnetonka Memo, which goes out to all residents of the city. So hopefully kind of continuing to spread awareness about the EnerChange program. So I also wanted to share my outreach process, somewhat similar to Annie and Ryan and Steve. I come from a community organizing background, so kind of I'll just share my spin on it. So I created a spreadsheet with different categories. I wasn't actually able to get information from assessing, so I kind of had to do some digging. And I did run it by kind of our community development folks as well to see if I was missing any organizations on my list. But I like splitting it up because with religious institutions, I felt like there was a little bit of a different approach than maybe how you'd approach a school. And then also I thought it was really helpful to distinguish whether a nonprofit was in a standalone building or within a larger building, because the ones within a larger building, unfortunately, aren't usually that receptive because they may not pay their utilities. They don't feel like they have a lot of maybe power over doing building projects. So it was like helpful to do kind of the targeted outreach towards organizations that would be more receptive. And so the most receptive I found were the religious institutions and nonprofits. And then I made sure to gather contact info. I think Annie mentioned this, like if you can connect with like a facilities director or building manager, that's really helpful. Also someone who's involved in the finance side of things, like understands the utility bills that they might be paying and how savings would really help the organization. And then also kind of getting all the way up to the top can be really helpful. Like if you get the executive director on board, I feel like that often just speeds up the process. And then I did emails and phone calls, and then I also did in-person visits because I found that some organizations just weren't really available by email or phone. And then, yeah, some specifics for religious institutions. So I found it really helpful to one thing was Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, which partners with EnerChange. They actually have climate hubs, and some of you already may be connected to yours, but we have a West Metro climate hub. And so I was able to connect with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, and then get them to connect me with this group of religious institutions in the area. And so then that was really helpful, because a lot of those people are very active, excited. They're on kind of creation care teams or like eco teams at their institution. And so they were able to really help get the ball rolling. And I do believe there are climate hubs in other parts of the metro, so that can be helpful. Yeah, and then similar to getting to the executive director, I feel like if you can get the pastor or the rabbi on board, that's really helpful. And then visiting in person, I found that a lot of churches and like religious institutions were closed during the week. And so I was like never, or they weren't staffed like in their office. And so I was never really getting to connect with them over the phone or email. And so I found that visiting in person was really helpful. And I actually went during religious services. I tried to plan it so I go like right at the beginning or the end to see if I could catch someone to actually get that face-to-face. And I think face-to-face in general can just be helpful, because you kind of are building trust and like putting kind of a name to a face, and able to, I gave out like flyers, which kind of gives them like a concrete kind of thing to refer to about the program. Yeah, and I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention about outreach that I forgot on past slides was just whenever I got someone either on the phone or in person who was interested, just trying to sign them up right away, I feel like is super helpful. You all probably know this stuff with outreach, but I just thought it's worth mentioning, because like, often they'll forget later or something. So if you can just get them like signed up right away, then like Ryan can reach out, and it kind of like just makes the whole process smooth. So anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you. And Kessa and Annie are such great examples of the kind of firepower that's needed in a community to drive these programs. And they've just been terrific. And they're both different kinds of models. Annie has been with St. Louis Park, and they've been at this for quite a while. Kessa came in as a willing extra hand, and really single-handedly came through with a lot of good things in Minnetonka. So you're getting two different frames of reference with these, and I can't tell you both how much we appreciate your work and how much we appreciate your work today. So we'd like to open it up to questions if we've got the technology right, I'm sure. But if you can direct your question to any one of us as a presenter, that'll speed things up. Anyone? Mike should be able to unmute, says Annie.
And
No.
video should be
I was just
doable
going to
now.
add, while people are maybe thinking of questions, I also forgot to mention one thing. And Ryan, you do a better job explaining this, but EnerChange is also able, I learned from an audit that I went along with Ryan, that many nonprofits are overpaying on their energy bills because they're not counted correctly as a tax-exempt organization. And that's like thousands of dollars in savings that they can get there just from updating their paperwork with Xcel. So that was also an incredible ad that I was glad we were able to share with those nonprofits.
The other
And
thing
rate
that
changes.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, like on rate changes, it's like it's almost mind-blowing the amount of times I'm looking at a multifamily property that is a brand new building that is on the wrong rate, which literally means from our standpoint that the moment that building was put online and their electric and gas was being monitored, they had them entered into their system incorrectly. It's like, all right, let's change that.
Yeah. Another thing that was mentioned, but I'd like to reiterate, you may wonder why we are kind of heavily weighted on the sector of houses of worship. Well, we have found that their sense of conscience, and many of them have uh, environmental committees and so forth formed already out of their consciousness to be a steward of the environment. So that's one of the reasons we have. Um, there must be questions. No? Can anyone indicate by chat if they're trying to get in and can't? Katie says, I missed that one. Did you get it, Annie? Katie, in
Yep.
the chat, can you do that again, please?
I can read it. She said, how much work are you able to do with Xcel Energy electricity served properties? So she's from the city of Coon Rapids, so that's in Xcel territory, but they get CenterPoint gas.
Good question. If you're CenterPoint, we're in. All we need is for you to have one of the utilities that we are primarily working with. However, we're open to finding ways to work in areas that perhaps aren't even covered with either CenterPoint or Xcel Energy. So please contact us if you are interested in working with us, and we'll try to work out a way that we can.
And I pull electric usage regardless. So it's like we have a boilerplate utility release form that we can send to, because like you'll get Wright Hennepin, which is kind of a pocket where CenterPoint also exists. So we're still getting that usage. And yeah, like Steve said, as long as it's one of the utilities we're funded by, then we're good to go.
Benjamin Lehman, it's nice to see a face.
Howdy.
Do you have a question?
I'm curious in your outreach whether you focus so much on the environmental aspect of energy efficiency, if you focus on cost savings more.
Well, as we said, our history says that unless there's a financial benefit to the customer, very little, if anything, is ever going to get done. However, the obviously our network with the Department of Commerce, Xcel Energy, and CenterPoint, and our own philosophy is highly interested in the environmental impact. And when we do our annual report or our application for funding, we claim the carbon savings and all of the kilowatt savings. And so it's a good combination, Benjamin, but it almost can't work without a financial way in. Good question.
If I lean too far in one direction, I can disgruntle a facilities manager. So it's kind of like a tightrope walk of how far into the environmental degradation side I can lean.
Ryan has to hold me back sometimes because I was in Al Gore's group of climate project presenters, original group in Nashville. And so I've been at this for a long time, but I found one recently on my own where there was a client that had a fairly significant denier still operating. So, the world is what it is, and we take people from where they are. And I think that's a prudent way to get to the goal that we all want. So, yeah. Other questions?
It looks like Michaela has her hand raised.
There you
Hi,
go,
everyone.
Michaela. Hi.
Hi there. Michaela Larson from the City of Hopkins. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is really helpful information. I am specifically interested in the outreach methods, and some key questions I guess I have would be if you experience a lot of turnover with some of the organizations that you support and how you might work through that, and if you find that some of the organizations that you work with will do one project and then be done, or if they would be interested in stacking multiple projects year after year, and what their eligibility looks like for doing multiple projects like that.
Very insightful question. I mean, we approach each client as a lifelong client. We have a church in Excelsior that has been doing work with us for 12 years and different projects all the time. You know, technology changes and opportunities change. So you've hit on something that's really important, which is that this is not a one-time, one-shot deal. People need to engage in this process now and into perpetuity, as Annie said. And we're very versed in doing that. Now, the outreach specifically for communities like Hopkins, Annie and Kessa have honed that with Ryan to perfection, I think. So maybe an offline discussion afterwards would be very valuable. I mean, Hopkins is one of the very forward-looking communities, and that should be an area that could benefit a lot and make a lot of progress. So, good. Did that cover it?
And I have a
Go ahead, Meg. Ryan.
Well, so I have a boilerplate pitch that's basically 3.5 sentences of here's blank blank from the city. We're calling on behalf of EnerChange, cost-free program, Xcel CenterPoint, and then that allows you guys, if you want to do another 2-3 sentences of whatever is available from the city of Hopkins. But that's super easy. And then on the turnover side, absolutely. It's almost a constant game where somewhere from COVID until now, lots of people started moving jobs, lots of facility managers moved from here to here to there, and it's like on my end that my communication has to be so much cleaner and concise when it's like I know that this report is going to go to this person if this person quits in or if they retire, like if there's a planned retirement where this person's retiring in 6 months, here's our blueprint of the entire building. When the new facility manager comes in, I'm going to attempt to sit down with them, go through the report, and kind of pick up any pieces that are left. Because I just with the nature of how we work with projects, sometimes I come in on the middle of a project that's already bid out, where the former facility person set up everything and the new person doesn't know anything. So then we got to fill those gaps. And yeah, the turnover has been brutal.
I scrolled back to this because if you will, each of you write to us, email us, we'll send you what Ryan described as the elevator speech, which is a 2-sided postcard that is the essence of everything that EnerChange does for you. So we'd love to send that to you. All we need is your email address, and we'd be happy to do that. It's the fastest way to keep a summary of what we do, what Annie and Kessa have described going on in those communities, and you can have it at your fingertips. Good questions.
And I just wanted to briefly add to the part of your question, Michaela, about the stacking of projects. It's been kind of a mixed bag. So STEP, they were expanding, so they were interested in doing all of that at once, versus for instance, Watt Prom, which is a Thai temple here in St. Louis Park, we helped them get some, like we came in and they were already working on a kitchen expansion, but then Ryan and I are hoping to get them in the future rebates for a lighting upgrade in their sanctuary. So again, it's kind of in a mix, but for them specifically, it's like that long game. So when I sent them the rebate check for the kitchen upgrade, I was like, hey, by the way, the next 36 months, you can get this rebate match. So let's talk about that lighting in the sanctuary. And then I just have a Google or an Outlook calendar alert, I think like every other month, if it feels right. And I kind of go case by case, but like send another email or phone call, like thinking about that lighting, like here's how. So it's just kind of keeping track of, where those organizations are at and trying to help them along.
You know, that's so important. We're thick-skinned. We have learned that energy efficiency is not the top of mind subject for everybody in the world. You know, you could approach this and be disappointed by that, but we believe you have to be realistic, and it goes back to Benjamin's question. All of these things figure in, and you're going to be dealing with people. First of all, most nonprofits, or many, do not have a full-time facilities manager, so you're going to have executive directors who know zip about these issues. But when they understand that EnerChange can in effect be an extra addition to staff, it really changes their viewpoint, because we can help them do things that maybe there is a vacuum within their organization. And we just have seen it all in our years and are not going to be surprised by any challenge from new construction all the way. I wish you could hear Ryan's description of some of the 200-year-old churches, which may look beautiful, but can be nightmares when it comes to energy efficiency. But they're worth attending to. A lot of progress can be made and a lot of money saved. Good questions, folks. Keep coming.
And there is some stacking. Like, so through, in certain scenarios, you can bundle entire projects through a financing opportunity. It's called MinPace. So it's operated by the St. Paul Port Authority, where you can, based on what the property taxes are paid on a biannual basis, you can you can roll a project into that. And there's two different people that manage that program that are pretty good. And they originally, the threshold for projects needed to be $100,000 or more, which kind of put most of our client base out of that wheelhouse. But in 2024, they dropped it to 20,000. So it's like for a nonprofit that's in, I want to say it's New Hope. He bought a he bought an auto body shop that he is gutting and turning into a catering business. And within that catering business, he's going to do some sort of food shelf opportunity, or like there's going to be a nonprofit housed in there, and he should be able to roll the entire project of the lighting, the walk-in coolers, the kitchen equipment into one loan funded through MinPace. And I'm hoping that I hope that actually gets completely greenlit, because so far I've never seen one. It's been a financing option for 15 years and I've never seen one actually executed. So fingers crossed.
We were inspired by Annie and Kessa and the work they did in their communities, and we thought, wow, how do we get to more of these cities? You folks have proven that this is a good way to do it. Your questions are terrific. You each apparently have opportunities to work with nonprofits, make progress in terms of energy efficiency. And we hope you'll call on us and let us help you in any way you want. A question there, Bridget. Did you see that, Annie?
Yep, just asking if the recording will be sent out, which I believe EnerChange can send that to attendees.
We can do that, and we also will place it on our website. So you can access the whole presentation in that fashion as well. Send us any requests you've got, and believe me, we will follow up. We're just about out of time. Last call for questions. Once, twice, 3 times. One more time, Annie and Kessa, thank you so much for this and for all the good work you do. And for all of you who joined us today, it's really encouraging to see that level of interest and curiosity, and hopefully we'll follow with actions after that. Thank you all very much.